Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to The Current Talk Radio Show.
Well, thanks to Sean McCarthy at irishvox.com for the wonderful voiceovers. You're going to be hearing quite a bit of him over the next hour. And he is, oh my goodness, for a young man, he's got the most wonderful voice. Now, tonight we have Julie O'Brien, ladies first, me, Maggie. We have BB Lawson, as usual. And we have an old friend of Chris-Christie's called Sam Greenfield. Hello, Sam.
Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself as the others all, know each other?
How would you like me to introduce myself?
Tell us a little bit.
I'm Sam Greenfield.
Yeah.
I was on Is this what you mean? I was
yes.
on WEVD, and then I came to there from Las Vegas. EVD was a heritage radio station that was disinherited. And then I was on WWRL, which was the flagship station here in New York of Air America. WWRL is still viable if you can speak Spanish. And after that, I went to WVNJ in beautiful Teaneck, New Jersey.
Lovely.
And now I write for WordPress.com and occasionally do blogs, as you have so generously offered me to do this one.
This is wonderful. We're so happy to have you here and to hear what you have to contributed by way of background on Christopher Christie.
Well, I know a lot of people think he's finished. I told a friend of mine, do you think he's finished? And he said, God knows there was enough that went into building him. But I think that 2016, if we're talking about his viability for that, because he just got reelected governor. I think that 2016 is a long way away in terms of the election. It's over 2 years away.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't make any more goofs, if he doesn't have a staff that thinks it's kind of cool to hurt people, eventually, if he doesn't make any mistakes, then it's very possible that somewhere down the line people are going to view what happened with the GW Bridge and all the other misgivings that he laid upon these people or his staff did as, okay, he did that. And, okay, he did that, and it's now 2 years later, and he hasn't done anything since, and he didn't do anything like that before, so we're going to cut him some slack. That's what I think. And I also think that nobody, if you take Christie out of the equation, nobody who is being considered a presidential contender in the Republican Party can win. Nobody. Certainly not Ted Cruz. Certainly not Rand Paul. I can't even think of someone outside of Christie who has a chance. So they may have to, but the thing that's amazing to me about the Tea Party is they would rather lose than win with an opponent they don't like, which I find kind of Asian in its hara-kiri approach to politics.
I find it charming. I find it charming and endearing, and I hope it lives forever.
Well, of course you do. It's like the old joke about what's agony and ecstasy, watching someone you hate drive over a cliff in your new car.
True.
So I think that the possibility exists that he could be viable, but they really... See, here, this is what's happening, in my opinion. I think that the Republican Party is held hostage to the far right, and I mean far right, much like the Democrats were held hostage by the left. But the difference is the left wasn't nearly as far left as these people are far right. I mean,
I agree.
It's not close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these people, I mean, Ronald Reagan would be a moderate. Ronald Reagan couldn't get the nomination today.
Do you have an opinion about why the far right has gone so far to the right?
Yeah, because the president's black.
Oh, okay.
That's why. Let me ask you, this is the thing. See, when something flies in the face of logic then I'm at a loss to understand it. I really mean that. I'm at a loss to understand it. So Obama, and he has faults. I'm not going to act like he's perfect, because he's not. But the thing about him is the Republican Party. I'll get to what you're saying, but they don't understand nuance, and they're fresh out of irony. So with Obama, to keep in mind, he saved the auto industry in this country, which is thriving now. Housing starts are up. Unemployment's down. Gas prices are, I know he doesn't have anything to do with it, but if they were going up, Fox News would have a myocardial infarction. Gas prices are down. Crime is down across the country. Infrastructure is being rebuilt in major cities. And yet you have people, even the vaunted Maureen Dow calling him Juan. I'm not looking for a dynamic guy, but he's getting things done. Are there things he hasn't done? Yes. But he's got a Congress who lives and breathes to stop him. You have a Congress, Mitch McConnell, the senator from Kentucky, the House minority leader, Senate minority leader, said, our objective is to stop, this is 4 years ago, to stop him from getting a second term. I have not heard a Republican, maybe you have, I have not heard a Republican say, we have to do something to help those who can't help themselves. I haven't heard one. Even when Katrina hit the South, and the senators from Mississippi and the congressmen came hat in hand begging for money. When Sandy hit New Jersey and New York, they said, we got to tighten our budget. There ain't no room for money now going out to y'all. I mean, it staggers me. But no, it's because he's black. And the reason I'm right is because if you say that, they get really defensive. They go crazy. I'm not a racist. No one said you were a racist. But the thing is, what you're looking at with the Tea Party is white America's last stand. The country's turning brown and yellow, and they just don't know what the hell to do about it. And their attitude is, listen, if you want the best basketball player and if you want the most famous astrologer, Degrassi Tyson, if you want that, you can have it. But damn it, the White House is white for a reason, and we're not going to change it. And here comes this guy. Mother on food stamps, father from Kenya. Oh, my God. I mean, it's staggering.
Brought up in a multicultural and multiracial environment in Hawaii.
Which is, a multicultural,
rainbow.
Circles. Yeah, or kaleidoscope, or pick any adjective you like.
It could be worse. It could be worse. He could be Irish.
Wow. Well, Kennedy was Irish. By the way, I don't know if you read this. I want to change something very quickly. Kerry Kennedy was found not guilty of being on drugs when she drove.
Yeah.
And she said, did you read what she said? She thinks the police are too tough on people who get pulled over for DUI.
Oh, my God. Not politically correct.
But see, I think this is very significant. I really do, and I'll tell you why. Because there is no more famous family in this country than the Kennedys. The Kennedys are America's royalty.
Or they were.
Well, yeah, you're right. When Teddy died, that chain broke. But they finally found a stupid Kennedy. I mean, we knew they had drug problems, and they knew, they philandered. But I think a lot of people said, "Who am I to judge?" But she's an idiot. I mean, this is like when John Belushi died. His wife was quoted as saying, when Bob Woodward wrote that book about him, he didn't say how drugs could be fun. I'm not in favor of throwing people in jail for drugs. I think most of them should be legalized, but. Drugs killed your husband, Einstein. But we found a stupid Kennedy. I mean, really. And the thing that's funny is Patrick Kennedy, who was arrested for weaving in and out of traffic and not knowing why.
In Washington,
is a huge proponent of. I think I'm right about this. If you have pot on you, you get your left hand cut off. I think is what he's aiming for.
Another genius Kennedy, huh?
Yeah, well, yes. I can see them at family dinner. Hi, this is that's Patrick, and just don't pass him any wine. Just keep the wine on this side of the table, because you'll never get it back. And then he'll start singing, and we have to throw him out. And he refuses to catch a cab. But anyway, so that's me yakking. That's what I think.
That's wonderful.
But didn't Patrick Kennedy just come out, so strongly against the president when he said that he didn't think that marijuana was such a horrible thing?
Well, the president's right. We have to stop pretending. This isn't. Have you ever seen Reefer Madness?
Mm-hmm.
I realize, the people. I could be wrong about this because people looked older then. If you look at my yearbook, the people who are seniors, they look like somebody's father. They're 17. They look like somebody's dad. A lot of it's the haircut and all that, but and at the time people were trying to look like their dad. The whole idea behind what has changed in this country, the idea of if you make it forbidden, that's when people use it. The first time most people smoke pot, they're in college, they're in the dorm room, the towel is rolled up on the door, and there's black light on it. It's all this ceremony to it. If you could just, get it like they do in Oakland, California, a doctor writes you a prescription because, you're sad, then it takes away, to me, it takes away, all the romance of it, and it makes it more mundane. But when did organized crime make their first inroads into this country? Prohibition, denying people things that they wanted. People have been getting high on something since the Egyptians. It was wine, and then it moved along. So to pretend it doesn't exist, and President Obama, he was stoned like a whore in the Bible. I mean, and how did he turn out?
That's debatable now, Sam. We don't really know. He's not a great president.
No, he's not a great president, but we're never going to have a great president again. And we're never going to have a great president again because the country's too divided.
I was just going to say that.
I
was just going to say that. As long as the House remains captive to the Tea Party,
right,
there will be no great presidents.
That's right.
Even if we get, and this is, I think, unlikely, a Senate-controlled, a Republican-controlled Senate as well as a Republican-controlled House, I don't think that such a Congress would have the vision to allow a president with great ideas to implement them.
I mean, you're talking about a president whose mother lived on food stamps, and he had to agree to cut food stamps. He had to, or the entire country would have gone in the dumper. He had to do that. Think about that. This is a guy who used food stamps to live. And he had to do that because this is the most recalcitrant group of know-nothing people that have ever occupied the House. And by the way, that's saying something because there was no Mensa meeting in the House in the 1830s and 40s. Mm-hmm. They had presidents then who make Rob Ford of Toronto look like Lincoln. So, Millard Fillmore, a drunk, a racist, Franklin Pierce, who I believe, I'm not kidding, is Barbara Bush's grandfather or great-grandfather. Remember, She was a Pierce, Barbara Pierce.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is related to him.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to something you said about Christie in relation to other possible candidates for the presidency, Republican candidates for the presidency in 2016. And while I don't disagree with you that people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are much less electable than Christie, I happened to read an article about 2 weeks ago that went into the biography of Christie very deeply and how he ascended to power after two elections which he lost at the very beginning of his career, and how his career never took off until he circulated a poster saying that one of his political opponents was under investigation, and it was absolutely
untrue,
hollow. It was totally untrue. Christie did it, and then in the remainder of that article, to summarize it, Christie used his power as a prosecutor to harm people who offered very slight resistance and who had done little or nothing by the way of criminal behavior. And then once he created a climate of fear throughout the state by prosecuting and convicting so many people, a lot of his fundraisers, Sampson not alone among them, started to have enormous success in business, usually by raising money that financed Christie's campaigns. So my question is this: do you think that if any of that kind of dirt ever came out, that it would hurt Christie's chances, even if it didn't come out until sometime in the summer of 2016?
That's the only thing that I think hampers the effectiveness of those facts. Is the amount of time that has passed. And let me give you a parallel. It's not as bad as that, but let me give you a parallel example. When Rudy Giuliani was the district attorney for the the prosecuting attorney for the Southern District of New York, and he was arresting Wall Street guys. These are Wall Street guys. I'm old, and there's a chance I could beat them up. Okay? So, and he brings them out in handcuffs, and he has them do a perp walk, and it's and then there was a rally, police rally. These are all policemen against Dinkins. The mayor before Giuliani.
Yes.
And he.
Oh, remember him well.
Yes. And he and all these cops, I mean, they're yelling the N-word, and they're pushing delivery boys who happen to be of color. And there's Giuliani, before he was elected, up on the lectern with a bullhorn yelling BS, BS. I don't know how much I can curse on this show. Yelling that, not yelling the initials, and he got elected twice.
Well.
In other words, you're saying dirt doesn't always hurt a candidacy.
If no one, what's the old saying? The last thing you want for a politician is to find him in bed with a dead woman or a live man.
That's good.
I can see how that might propel Christie to the presidency.
I'm going to tell you what I think. If I was managing Christie's campaign, this is what I would tell him, and I mean this. Be jolly. I mean that. If I was running, be jolly. No finger pointing, no look here, pal. No, I don't give a crap what you think. Gee, I'm really sorry you feel that way. That's how you have to talk. You want to be president, or do you want to go through life saying, I guess I told him? That's what I would tell him.
He can't do that. It's
well, I know he can't. Oh, I know he can't. It's like telling, it's like telling someone 3'8" be tall. No, it's over. He can't. Yeah. But if he could, remember there was a new Nixon. He wasn't that vicious, red-baiting guy anymore. He was a statesman.
That's right.
Remember that?
That's
no, well,
right.
I do. And
we all do.
And he changed, in that way. I remember the great...
Or at least he changed his image.
Well, yes. I'm going to tell you something funny about him. He was, after Johnson, the most liberal president of my lifetime. He silence gripped the room. He created the EPA. He created OSHA. He strengthened Job Corps. He strengthened EOE. He strengthened affirmative action. His Justice Department sued for affirmative action. Now look at the presidents after him. Ford. Well, that was an interlude. But Carter, who literally, couldn't find his rear end with his hands. Reagan. I've got so many stories about Reagan. I'll just do one if it's okay. Well, there's one real quick.
Yeah,
They
go
asked
ahead.
Ronald Reagan, how can you raise the defense budget at this time? And he said, well, you need a lot of things for defense. You need wardrobe, and someone had to tell him that wardrobe is how you outfit a Navy movie. Okay, it's not.
Oh, he was never an intellectual. We don't need to dwell on that.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, never.
But I see your point.
Yeah, he was. He
from wardrobe. That's one thing. Founding EPA and strengthening affirmative action. That's something quite different.
Yeah. The other thing is about Reagan. This is my favorite. He said that he. I'm trying to remember this. Oh, he was speaking to Medal of Honor winners, and he was telling the story about. He was telling the story about this captain who was piloting this plane that was shot and was going to crash during World War II, right? And in the back was a ball turret gunner, and he left his cockpit, and he went back to the ball turret. He went back to the ball turret gunner, and he said, "Son, we'll take this one down together." And there wasn't a dry eye in the house, and it was a movie. And he did this to Medal of Honor winners. He did this to people who conceivably could have lost a limb, right?
What?
Yeah. But so whenever I hear someone say, Reagan brought the nation together, he brought white America together. And here's a quote that you'll never, ever hear about Reagan or from Reagan. But there's a magazine years ago called Inside Sports.
I remember it vaguely.
It was a good magazine, but, they were flooded. There were too many magazines. Somebody interviewed Ronald Reagan when he was president, and he was telling the story. God, this is so unbelievable. He was telling the story about when he played football, I believe at Eureka College in Illinois.
It was Eureka.
And there was an African-American guy on the team. He was probably the only African-American on either team. And he was a running back. And the other team, because he was black, really socked it to him whenever he ran. The elbow here, punch there. And he took it, and he didn't complain, and he gave back as good as he got. And at the end of the game, Ronald Reagan said, I walked up to, I'm going to make up his name because I don't remember his name. I walked up to him and I said, David, today you played like a white man. And so after the medic picked up my jaw, I thought, well, this is just going to ruin him. Not a nothing. Not because I think the prevailing attitude is, it's Reagan. He's really, the taco doesn't have all the fillings. So
right, and when you start out with an empty taco, you got to remember the decade. I think Reagan was playing in the middle 30s, no later than 37, and you go back to the early 20s and come forward, there was a taboo on black players playing in college. There was one or two here and there if they were superstars.
Oh, no, that was it. What was amazing is, this amazes me, not because it's football, but the most forward-thinking game in terms of integration was football, professional football. Marion Motley was an all-pro in 45.
I remember. Even though I was living in Washington in the late 40s, and we had no African Americans on the Redskins until Bobby Mitchell came in 1960.
My hometown.
Yes, that we were very much aware of the stardom of other black players around the NFL.
I sat next to Bobby Mitchell at training camp. There was a time when the NFL is not the major sport it is now. And the Redskins practiced at the playing field at Georgetown University. And you just walk up to them. You just walk right up, And he had just finished a workout, and I was sitting next to him, talking to him. They let you do everything but shower. I watched the game. I took a snap from a center. It was a wonderful atmosphere.
Wow.
But the irony is that the Redskins traded Ernie Davis, the great running back from Syracuse, for the rights to Bobby Mitchell, and Ernie Davis died before I think he ever played a down. He died of leukemia.
Right.
At the age of 22. Yeah, D.C.'s my hometown. So, we were talking about Kennedy. When he was shot, it was a half day of school that day. And, man, you walked out of, I was in the yearbook office, and the teacher came in and said the president's been shot. Those were words I never thought I would hear. You got to remember, the one before that was 1901.
Right.
So, McKinley. And to my knowledge, although my sister's high school was named after him, no, you don't hear anybody from that era go, McKinley. He's not a famous, he's not famous for arousing love and respect. But yeah, the Redskins. The owner was George Preston Marshall, and the original Redskins song was "Hail to the Redskins, Hail Victory, Braves on the Warpath, Fight for Old Dixie." And they changed it.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they changed it to D.C.
Yes, they did.
And
I didn't know it was Dixie. That's very interesting.
Yeah, Dixie. I also think it's ironic that the NFL is thinking about fining people for saying the N-word on the field, but you can be a Redskin. You know what? I thought about this the other day. Can you imagine a football game where there's a team called the New Jersey Jews? Can you imagine? And the announcer, get this, there's two announcers, right? And one announcer says, well, Bob, the Jews are taking the field. Of course they are, Ted. They're Jews.
No. You're quite right. And I tell you, my reaction is very simply this. How many times in life have you seen a person of any race approach a person of another race and say, you know what, you make me think you're a Redskin?
Yeah,
and of
really.
Course,
boy.
Run the same joke with the target being an Indian.
Well, you know where Redskin comes from.
You got a fight in your hands.
Redskin is not because their skin is red. Redskin came from, it's even worse than that. Redskin came from the settlers who beat them till their blood ran onto their skin. That's why they were called Redskins.
Oh,
it was a bragging point of some dimwit, probably from Alabama, who beat some poor Native American half to death. And I say that because I read this huge article years ago about who settled the South, and they were all convicts, which is why...
Certainly in Georgia.
In Georgia, they were given, Oglethorpe, they were given a choice in England, hang or come to the New World.
Right.
Which is not really, you don't want the Chamber of Commerce promoting that idea. But the other part of that is that, Alabama was settled by virulent people, by, slave traders and things like that, and people with criminal records. And so if you look at it now, the most homicides are in the South, the most divorces are in the South, the most spousal abuses are in the South, the fattest people are in the South, the most smokers are in the South.
Most gun violence is in the South.
Well, it's like when Texas...
You're listening to the Current Talk Radio Show.
We can continue,
I think. Remind everybody where we are.
Yeah, please. Please do. Yes, absolutely. When I heard that voice, it reminded me that Piers Morgan got fired.
Piers Morgan is British.
I know.
Yeah, well, this wonderful gentleman called
Irish.
Sean McCarthy is Irish.
Well, McCarthy tipped me off.
Yes, and Sean. Right.
But there's a in the Hibernian lilt, there's still a trace of something else there. Do you like that Hibernian lilt?
Yeah, I like that.
Sounds like a hairstyle for Irish people. Sorry.
Julie and I are both Irish.
Really? Now, is your family from there?
Oh, well,
how many generations?
Well, listen to Maggie talk. And you won't have to ask where her family's from.
I got the Irish accent going there, I do. I got the Irish accent.
You sure do now. Holy guacamole. Now I hear it. How ironic. We're talking Irish and I said guacamole, but yeah, now I hear it, sure.
You should have said holy Colcannon.
Yeah. It's almost time to make me some Colcannon.
The odds to my pulling that from my Rolodex mind is so small, it bears repeating.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know what Colcannon is.
Oh, dear Lord. It's potatoes and cabbage mixed together with about 3 pounds of butter and a pint of milk.
Or you can just get a heart attack.
Well, many of us do, Sam. Many of us do.
I'll tell you something. There's a picture of my father. He's passed away many, over 50 years ago, but this shows you how nutrition has changed. When my father went to the doctor, and by the way, my father lived a life. He lived to be 63. That's a miracle. He went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you need more calcium in your diet. Now, this is 1961, okay? He said, start drinking a gallon of whole milk a day.
Yikes.
So my father was 5 feet tall. He was built like a jockey. He was 5 feet tall, 110 pounds. And there's a picture of him about a month before he died. His stomach looked like he was hiding undocumented workers. And
has anybody ever told you how witty you are, Sam?
Well, I was a stand-up comic for 12 years.
Oh, my goodness. Now, how lucky are we that Aimee Kass tipped us off about you?
Well, she's
Gotta give Aimee a shout-out. She's a wonderful producer and a wonderful friend.
She's a lovely person. She's a terrific person. She's a very dear friend.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to have her as a friend. Very, very lucky.
We all are lucky to have met Aimee.
My dream for Aimee is that she wins the Mega Millions and becomes drunk with power and becomes like Andy Griffith and Face in the Crowd, just for a week. Because she's so nice, the change would just be amazing. In other words, Aimee, I heard why are you talking to me? That kind of thing. Oh, God, just the changeover for the sake of it. But
that won't happen.
No, there's no chance.
Let me.
If Chris-Christie were to win the Mega Millions, and hopefully he would take himself off somewhere warm and just leave New Jersey to the New Jerseyans.
No, he will never leave. He will never, ever leave.
Shame. That's a damn shame.
But I want you to think about something for a second. I'm not arguing any of the points you're making, okay? I hope that's clear. None of them.
You can argue if you want.
No, I would, but I don't in this case. I agree with what you're saying. But from a pragmatic point of view, the woman that ran against him lost by... By the way, this is another thing that amazes me. She lost by, 24 points? Huh?
Barbara Buono.
Right, Barbara Buono. She lost by 24 points. Is that about right? 20? Something like
more
that?
Than that, I think. Julie, what do you think?
I think it was 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is what amazes me. He is so far ahead of her I don't mean, governmentally, but in that election, right? He could not lose. And his staff tried to coerce a Democratic mayor to endorse him. And the mayor said, the mayor of Fort Lee, he said, you've got to be kidding. I'm a Democrat. I'm not jumping ship because you're ahead. That's what amazed me. They didn't, if you were 3 points behind and you were desperate and you needed an endorsement, I understand that. You've already hit the home run. You're 5 feet from home plate. What are you doing?
He's bullying. That's what he's doing.
Now, do you think
that's his characteristic personality trait?
But do you think he had a hand in that? Because I don't, and I'm not a fan of his, but I don't. I'll tell you what I think. No, this is what I think. I think you hire people in your own image.
Yes.
And I think that they were trying to please the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And what it proves to me is not that he hired someone in his own image, because I knew that, okay? But they're stupid. They're stupid. This is what amazes me. This is 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do, you'll get caught. Anything you ask Anthony Weiner. Anything you do, someone will find out. No one is safe from public scrutiny. There are too many cameras, and I mean in the hands of people, and I mean, on our street corners. There are too many cameras. There are too many phones. There are too many computers. I'm not complaining, by the way. I'm just saying that
there's too many of us reporters. We're watching you all the time.
Thank you.
But the difference
look how they
here,
treated bill-stepien today.
Right, and we've talked about this for weeks.
Say that again.
Now.
I didn't hear you. Look how they treated
Bill-Stepien, Governor Christie's former campaign manager.
What
how
happened
did they? How did they treat him?
The FBI agents went to his home and asked his neighbors questions about him.
Oh, please, that's a typical Christie thing. I'm sorry, BB, Julie was speaking.
Oh, okay. I just
No, it's fine. That's typical of the FBI. That's how they've been.
That's how they
operated
do what
under.
They do.
That's how they operated when they were
the point about scrutiny.
If they think if anything he done if anything he did violated any kind of federal law, I mean, there's a difference between that and Ken Starr pulling someone's son out of a high school gym class to interrogate him. But that's how the FBI does it. This is funny. I have a nephew who's an FBI special agent, and they are wherever it takes them, that's where they go. Wherever it takes them, that's where they go. So, it's got to be frightening for Stepien. It's got to be frightening for these neighbors. You get a knock on the door. Have you ever been interviewed by an FBI man?
Yes, but not because I was under suspicion. It's because I was applying for a job. I lived in an apartment in Georgetown, and after I moved out, this years ago. After I moved out, somebody, those blow cards you get in magazines to subscribe, they're called blow cards, those little thin cardboard things to fill out somebody wrote on one in my apartment 6 months after I moved out, "I will kill President Nixon on September 23rd. So the FBI found out where I was at that very moment. They knew that I was on the third floor of the student union of my college. They knew what room I was in. This is 1970. They knew what room I was in, and they said, "Can we come up and interview you?" I wasn't under the impression saying no was a smart idea. So I said, "Yeah, sure." So they told me why. They showed their badge, and they said, "No, we're going to ask you to do something. And you will sign this saying that you are under no suspicion at any time, but I want you to write the words, 'I will kill President Nixon on September 23rd, 5 times, and we're going to check your handwriting.'" So I said, "Okay, I didn't do it. I'm fine." So I wrote it. As I'm writing it, I said to him, "Suppose I tell you I don't want to do it." He said, "Then we would go to the registrar and get a copy of your signature," which you can't do, which you cannot do now.
Wow, hardball, huh?
Yeah.
But you can't do it now because of the Buckley Amendment.
Wow.
But there was an article today, and I think it was the Stepien article, where they talked about Bridget-Kelly and her family declining to be interviewed.
Declining what?
Declining to be interviewed by the feds. Well, we're just not going to talk to you.
How can she
I'm not sure how you do that, because don't they just invade your home? Don't they invade your office?
No.
That's the way that they'll send their FBI investigators in the way that they did when Chris Christie was the U.S. attorney, and they would show up at people's homes and at people's offices and come out with 6 boxes, each box having, one piece of paper in it to make it look, look
that, I'm going to tell you
big
something.
and important.
I absolutely believe everything you just said. And having said that, that is the most pathetic thing I have ever heard in my life. 1 sheet of paper in a box. And
I'll tell you that's because I know people who were prosecuted by Chris Christie, and that's exactly what happened. They would, in some cases, they left with boxes full of materials, but in other cases, they would leave. I mean, I have firsthand accounts of this, where they would leave someone's office or home with boxes with 1 piece of paper in it to make it look, it was all for the press. and they'd have the press outside ready to take pictures of everything. You know, they were big on the perp walks. They were big on trying people in the court of public opinion so that when it came time for them to go to trial, the jury pool was so polluted because who doesn't watch television?
What about warrants? What about search warrants?
They would come in with search warrants.
Oh, they would?
Yeah.
Oh,
I can only imagine watching one of them holding the box that only has one piece of paper, being instructed to act like it had 100 pounds, and watching them struggle with the box, as if it had more. You know,
bullying tactics.
Yeah. Don't spin it on your finger. Act like it's heavy. You know.
Let me ask you a question about Mrs. Clinton.
Yes.
What do you think her chances are of becoming president of the United States, and who would you recommend that she take as her vice president?
You're talking to a man who said that in the 2008 election, Hillary Clinton was a tidal wave and that Barack Obama should get out of the way or drown. I want you to remember that. I'm that guy, okay?
All right.
Oh, dear.
I think that...
I'll tell you, my question's loaded. It's about Monica Lewinsky coming out again every day for a year or two.
Nothing they can say does anything but help her.
What?
Nothing they say can do anything but help her.
Are you serious, Sam?
Yes. Nothing. Let me explain why, okay?
Why? Yeah, go on.
The impeachment scandal.
She didn't get a BJ from that woman. She wasn't impeached. She was the wife who was publicly humiliated through this escapade, okay? So when you bring up, God, I've got so many answers to this, but when you bring up Bill Clinton's dalliances, all you do is, let me say something real quick. Let me interrupt myself. If you're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton, nothing anyone says is going to make you vote for her, and that those people are over. We're pushing them to the side for now, okay? There's nothing you can do. You know, she could cure cancer. Nothing you can do. She's a woman. They hate her. Whatever. You know, she's a liberal. I don't care. They're not going to vote for her. But everyone else is going to say she didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You know, and that's number one. But number two, if she's smart, and let me get back to that for a second, she will say, "What's this got to do with women not being blah blah blah? What's this got to do with reproductive? What's this got to do?" That's what she's going to say. But let me say, this is a woman who hired Mark Penn, who is a pollster, a statistician, to be her campaign manager. That was an egregious mistake.
True.
A horrible mistake. I interviewed Mark. I interviewed her twice. She was great. But I interviewed Mark Penn, and this is what his advance people said. This is after she dropped out, okay? Mark Penn had written a book about statistics, and as you all know, the line is so long for a book about standard deviation. Mark Penn, his advance people said, he will not talk about Hillary Clinton or the election campaign. I said, okay, then I'm canceling the interview.
Wow.
And he said, well, no, the book. I said, I don't care about the book. No one cares about the book. The only reason the book's going to sell more than 3 copies is because he was Hillary campaign manager. And by the way, had you told me this yesterday, I would have canceled yesterday. So don't get mad at me because I'm canceling you right now. If he doesn't talk about the election, and by the way, if you say to me, well, he will, and then I bring him on and he doesn't, I'll hang up on him. So these are your choices. He can either talk to me about it, he can either not talk to me about it, or he can lie, and then I'm going to hang up on him and explain to people why I hung up. And the guy, this is my favorite line. And by the way, normally I'm not that gutsy, but that really ticked me off. You know, that's like having, I can't compare this, but that's like having Einstein on and saying relativity. You can't talk about relativity. That's just, I hate talking about it. You know. And so his advance guy said, I love this. He said, let me tell you something. If you cancel him now, he's never coming back on.
Wow.
And I said, I'd like that notarized. and then I hung up. It was only the second time I ever hung up on somebody in terms of radio. But getting back to Hillary, no, I if she hires a good campaign manager, she'll be great. As far as vice president, I don't know who the hell I would pick. What I would love to see, I would love to see two women. I would love to see two women running. I would love that.
But Sam, is that because of the male image of the two women having a mud fight?
You mean, I don't mean run against. I mean run with.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, and by the way, there is no woman in the Republican Party who the entire party will accept who can win anything. Nothing. I mean, we're all bright people. Can you think of a Republican woman who is a viable candidate? And by viable, I mean she'll get more than one nominate. What am I trying to say? Primary vote? Can you think of one?
Michelle Bachmann would get the Tea Party vote across the country. For Pray Away the Gay alone, she would get the Tea Party vote.
Here's the thing that I love about that I pray. I'm going to tell you something. I'm not religious, but I pray that she gets the nomination.
Wouldn't it be lovely, those eyelashes on TV every day?
Oh, she's not the reason I want her to get the nomination. Her husband is the reason.
Oh.
Do you know about Marcus Bachmann?
No, I don't even think we've seen him on television, have we?
Oh, yes, you have.
He's very Svengali-like, isn't he?
He's very gay.
I know, yeah.
Oh.
I know.
He runs a clinic. I have a gay friend who calls it defagification. He runs a clinic where you're supposed to, if you're gay and you don't want to be gay anymore, which is just the saddest, God, please, he doesn't do anything. I mean, I'm talking about he does nothing. Okay? In fact, there was a place like this in Florida, run by a guy who said he was gay and became straight and all that, right? And the guy closed shop in Florida because he said, I've been living a lie. I can't, these people are gay and you can't change them and, and I really admired him because he's a religious man. He says, he said, I'm living a lie and that goes against the gospel of Jesus. And I was so impressed by that. But her husband, there's an old joke about someone who's hiding their sexuality. The joke is, if he's not gay, he's on the waiting list. And you have to see Marcus Bachmann. You have to hear him talk. I don't normally ascribe mannerisms and diction and things like that to any particular sexual orientation, but this guy, he makes Truman Capote look like Clark Gable. It's and the irony is that he is, he runs this clinic. He runs this clinic, and they have 5 kids, and they foster kidded 23 others.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh,
yeah.
Ouch. Yeah. Now, has anybody spoken to them, Sam?
No, I don't think so.
Nobody's spoken to the foster kids.
But she's not as nuts as Rick Santorum, to me.
Really?
Santorum, they have a child that died, I don't know, an hour after the child was born.
Yeah.
It was a horrible story, heart born outside the body, all that. They took the corpse home and showed it to their other children and then slept with it that night. And
that wouldn't happen in my house.
Huh?
That would not happen in my house.
I can't think of 3 houses where it would. Maybe the house of Usher. But
before it fell.
But that's but getting back to Mrs. Clinton or Secretary Clinton, I guess I should say. what she desperately needs is for Bill to start doing landscape pictures in the Antarctic during the campaign.
Why?
Because he's a liability.
I think so.
He's a liability.
So. He's a lightning rod
that
would attract all kinds of dirt.
He's the best president of my lifetime, but he's all about Bill.
Oh, my God.
Let me ask you a question. Don't you think it hurt Hillary when Bill Clinton said this black kid comes out of nowhere? Do you remember that quote?
I do.
You don't think that hurt Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, if he was a campaign worker, he would have been fired. If he was a campaign director, he would have been fired for that remark.
I remember now. He said that Barack Obama was during, I think this was during the South Carolina primary.
That's exactly what it was, yes.
Was a fairy tale. And who concocted this fairy tale? That some black nobody could be taken seriously as a presidential candidate.
Now, had he said this nobody, we wouldn't be having this talk. But, and the thing that's funny is Bill Clinton is not a loose cannon. And there are people who think, well, let me rephrase that. Bill Clinton is careful in what he says. And there are people who think that subconsciously he was trying to sabotage her campaign. And I think that this time she probably, sat her husband down and said, if anything like that happens again, I'll have you killed.
Woohoo!
Wow.
But he is, I would, listen, she can't win any more votes with him than without him. Okay? Can you think of what percentage of African Americans do you think are going to vote for Republicans? That's right. What percentage of Latinos? That's right. What percentage of women? That's right. So what the Republican Party is going to get is the Deep South, parts of the Far West, Orthodox Jews, and some guy who lives in his mother's basement who demands to be called Mr. Venom. And that's about it.
So you're suggesting we all move to the Deep South to see if we can turn purple states blue?
It's happening already. Virginia, that was the capital of the Confederacy. Virginia went for Obama twice. Why? Well, I'm from D.C., and, you lived in D.C.
I'm in D.C.
Northern Virginia is just replete with Latinos.
It's also replete with an awful lot of liberals of various races.
Yeah. And they're not voting for someone who wants to throw them out of the country unless they're clinically ill. No.
Introducing our hosts, BB Lawson, Julie O'Brien, and Maggie Mulvihill.
And now that is out of the way, thank you.
You have the greatest last names I've ever heard.
Aren't they just wonderful? But you know what? I love Julie, and I've hardly heard her all night. Julie.
I'm so enthralled listening to the boys talk tonight.
I know. We're all enthralled with them, but can you give us a quick recap of what Democratic politics are like in New Jersey this week?
Well, I was out of New Jersey for part of the week.
Wedding?
I was at a wedding. I had a 3-day trip to Cincinnati, which was a fun thing. And I've been very busy at work since I got back, and I feel like I've been kind of out of it, but I did do a little bit of reading today about the things that are going on in New Jersey, and it's the same what Sam was saying earlier about Christie possibly being able to survive this if nothing else comes forward. It's it's a daily drip, 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 drip of additional things.
Yeah.
And I don't, I respectfully disagree. I don't think that he's going to be able to survive this, only because there are so many things out there. And
do you mean by survive? I'm sorry. Do you mean by survive that he'll be a viable presidential candidate, or that his political career is over in New Jersey?
I think he's not going to survive his term as governor.
I agree.
Really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Sam, I agree.
From a legal standpoint, Sam, And don't blame me. I didn't really choose to be a lawyer. It just happened one day.
God bless you for defending
his mother,
country, sir.
His mother insisted he become a lawyer.
Not really. I'll go into that later.
No, that's wrong.
This Sandy money thing.
Pray away the money.
This Sandy money has been misappropriated.
Yeah, it has.
And there's more than enough evidence right now for a charge to be filed
against him. Against
Christie.
Okay.
And against the people under his direction who have done nothing with the money except give it. I think what was it, $6 million for a senior residence home.
Yes.
In a town where the Democratic governor just happened to say, "Oh, sure, I endorse you." That by itself is criminal, and there's going to be many more instances of some kind of abuse of those funds.
Let me tell you,
they've come back on the Belleville thing, saying that now, now Sandy victims will have first dibs on the apartments there, which I'm understanding is illegal. That they can't do that. That they can't give those apartments to people who are victims first. So, I don't know where that's going to go. There's that. There's the money that went to New Brunswick for luxury apartments. There's there's still the charity that Mary Pat Christie has, that the money, I don't know where it's gone to, if it's gone anywhere, how much of that is being spent on administrative salaries. Those are questions that are not being asked.
Let me ask a question, and I'm just playing devil's advocate because I am not a New Jerseyan, and I you know so much more about this than me. Is what's happening because he's incompetent or because he's crooked?
I think it's a little both.
Yeah. I think that there's a level of incompetence there because before he became U.S. Attorney, he really didn't do much.
And he had zero experience when he was selected.
Right.
He had not prosecuted a case anywhere.
Right.
How did he get it?
He raised money.
His brother bought it for him.
Oh, okay. He's an earner.
Yeah.
Yeah, his brother bought it for him.
Oh, okay.
Where that money comes from, we don't think we're going to find out anytime soon.
But he's also very arrogant, and I think that's where most of this came from, was from arrogance.
See, that's what I meant when I said, and I agree with you, I don't think it's in his DNA to change, but that's what I meant when I said that if he wants any chance of any career after all this, be jolly. But he can't. And by the way, if everything starts falling down on him, here's the word you're going to hear out of his mouth every day. You ready? Vendetta.
Oh, yeah.
It's a vendetta.
Liberal witch hunt.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Better yet. It's a liberal witch hunt. I'm just a guy, trying to make this state obey you, blah, 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 blah.
Well, he has tried that already. He's out there saying, oh, none of this would have happened if I weren't, being talked about as a candidate for president.
Really?
He tried, no big deal. That's what he said. Not that much. That's not that much of a big deal. Not that big of a deal. That's what he said.
Yeah.
This is no big deal. Land closures.
And you all know, he said to the press, you all know what this is about. This is about, me being talked about for president, and, people are going after me. So it was, he was making it a witch hunt.
But see, the thing I find amazing about this is a guy who, and I'm telling you something you already know, or I'm saying something you already know. This is a guy who keeps playing coquette and not croquet, coquette, and going, oh, I don't think I'm going to run. I love the state, but then when crap rains down on him, oh, it's because I'm a viable presidential candidate. Make up your mind.
Yeah.
Either. In other words, president should never leave his lips because he has already said, I'm not running. All right, if you're not running, that's fine. then just say, I don't know why this is happening to me. But you can't say, I know it's happening to me because I'm presidential timber. No, you can't have it both ways. You can't.
Sam.
I think he just wants to hold on to his job.
Hi, guys.
For
Sam,
as long.
BB.
He wants to last out his term.
BB.
Yep.
Sam and Julie. We only have about 9 seconds left in this segment, but if you would all like to dial back in again when this segment ends, we can continue our discussion.
I'm going to be departing, but I cannot thank you enough for this. I loved it, and you're all wonderful, and thank you so much, and I'd love to do it again.
You are definitely coming back. Sam, we definitely want you to come back. Right, guys?
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Sam.
Bye, Sam.
Be well.
Bye-bye. I've got a long drive.
Okay. All right, BB. We'll see you.
Please let me
go.
Talk
to you later.
All right,
bye.
Thank you. Great show.
Bye.
Appreciate everybody. Take
care.
Oh, Julie, that just leaves you and me, and I don't even know if we're still on the air.
Okay. Well, let's regroup next week.
All right.
Okay. And,
all right. And we're going to see you next week, right? Or is it the week after?
No, the last week in the month.
Oh, the last week in the month. Well, really looking forward.
I'm down 26, 27, 28.
Excellent. Really looking forward to it.
Me too.
We'll see you then. And thanks so much for your contribution tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.
This is the Current Talk Radio Show.